Can you give me your full name, please?
Yeah, Alexis Reed.
My name is Tony.
And where do you come from?
I'm from Utah. Lived most of my life in Utah.
Okay. And are you still LDS?
No, I don't. I don't consider myself LDS.
And are you still LDS?
No.
Consider yourself LDS. What would you consider yourself to be?
Um, I like to consider myself existentialist and agnostic, leaning atheist.
Maybe like existentialist or agnostic. I'm not too sure if I'm atheist, but yeah, something like that. So I kind of grew up in the church, but not really. Both of my parents were baptized. My grandmother was an active member, but she wasn't a very big influence on me in high school. Some of the girls from my local ward started bringing me to seminary or Wednesday's activities, and so I started driving myself to seminary when I was in high school. I never graduated seminary, but that kind of made me like reconvert myself when I was like 15 years old, reintroduce myself back to the church. I mean, when I was in high school, I started looking up different material to research about the church. But my friends in the church, when I started telling them that I was researching things, they told me I wasn't supposed to do that. And so I completely stopped. It kind of scared me from it. So I never did that again until I was in college. I took D&C at BYU. And there are some things that the professor was saying that didn't really add up. He started like contradicting what he was saying about stories. Some of the stories didn't make sense. And so one time in class, I just looked up a name of a person that he was talking about, and turns out he was like lying about. He told a lie about the person's history. So I started looking up other people that we were looking up in DNC, and what do you know? Not all the stories were correct, and that kind of started me researching it. This was probably about 2015.
As a Mormon missionary, I taught that there was three things that uh, rose and fell together. And that was Joseph Smith, the Book of Mormon, and the church itself. And I feel like I learned enough about each of those things to decide that all three of them were false. And as a missionary, I taught that if one of them was false, then the whole church was false. So I was definitely raised to believe that marriage was something that was of God and was had more significance than I believe it does now. My marriage is absolutely still very important to me. I don't think of it as in the way the Mormons do, or as they say, the eternal perspective.
Yeah.
So my view of it has definitely changed, but I actually feel like my marriage became stronger because of it, because of leaving the church. As a member of the church, you're always trying to live up to something that you're not. And you're always trying to be someone that you're not. Some people fit that mold and that cookie cutter a lot more naturally than others. Um, Personally, I naturally fit it in a lot of ways, and in a lot of ways I didn't. And same with my wife. As we left the church, we were able to be our own people and really kind of find ourselves. And so after we were able to do that, we're able to, I think, accept each other a lot more because we had learned to accept ourselves. We didn't have these expectations for each other as well, because just as we were trying to fit ourselves into this certain mold and become these people that we weren't, we expected that out of each other as well. And so once we dropped a lot of those expectations for ourselves and each other, we were able to grow a lot.
So my immediate family's still in Texas, so I didn't really like talk to them a lot. But when I was getting married, I pressured them a lot about the church. So I started not talking to them as much during the time because I felt really guilty about it, because I know that I didn't try to make them feel bad about not being able to go to the temple, but I'm sure they did because they couldn't see their own daughter getting sealed or anything like that, right? And so I felt kind of guilty about it. But then whenever I told my parents over the phone, like I said, both of them are not really LDS, but grew up in the Southern Belt, in the Baptist Belt. So my mom just told me, as long as you believe in something, it's okay. But other than that, they were totally fine about it. Actually, after I told my parents, I helped my stepdad resign from the church. It was kind of hard because he was calling me and telling me some people from the ward kept coming over trying to pressure him to come back to church, not to do what he's doing. But he was pretty confident in his choice. It was kind of awkward between me and my mom for a little while, but she's a pretty understanding person, and she treats me like I'm an adult, so she knew it was for the better, whatever Isaac decided to do.
So my parents and siblings don't know that I've left the church. Um, I guess they're getting the idea that I'm changing,
Uh-huh.
and I know that that makes them uncomfortable, and so the relationship was definitely strained, and I hope they're gonna find out more and more as time goes on, and it'll be interesting to say the least how that comes about. The kind of person that I am and my beliefs and my lifestyle really mesh well with the culture here. And so, although I like Utah for the place that it is as far as nature, and I think there's great infrastructure and there's really great companies. Um, the culture, as far as the people and things like that, is something that definitely makes me somewhat uncomfortable being here still.
There's certain things in the temple that, I mean, I won't say out of respect for the religion, but basically that the woman is beneath the man and the woman does not have a direct tie to God. And that really, really bothered me. And there's always gender equality in the church, always really I struggled with a lot, especially as a sociology major and studying that kind of stuff. So before then, yeah, I definitely had issues and questions. Of course, with the gay rights issues, I had questions with that. So yeah, there was a little bit of doubting throughout until I officially left. But then once I left the church, I didn't expect very much of like how living here is going to change, but it actually did change a lot. I know that. So if I go to the store, I feel like I know no one puts this pressure on me, but I feel like if I leave the house and I'm wearing something that's past my knees and over my shoulders, that I need to wear something that identifies me as not being in the church because people will automatically assume that I am,
Right.
if that makes sense. And it changes how they interact with me. Notice too, if I wear shorts and a tank top in the summer, people will stare at me more because they're just not used to seeing a woman showing so much skin usually. So it is kind of interesting in that aspect. There's definitely a lot of the influence I see with how people treat us. Like when my husband and I go out to eat, they always talk to him. They give the check to him. They don't. I feel like there's a lot of like gender wise. There's a lot of they treat us differently versus like in Texas and Dallas. They don't. There's definitely not that discrepancy.
I always kind of felt like I was on the side or not necessarily paid as much attention to. And so um, I think that definitely made it easier for me to leave the church. I think that if I knew what I know today about the church and its history and the inconsistencies, then no matter what, I would have still left. But I think that because I never really felt that I fit in 100%, it made it much easier to leave.
So I think if there's more open conversation, more healthy, just realize if someone leaves the church doesn't mean that they hate everyone that's Mormon. It just means that they just aren't part of that religion. Something as simple as that. They're not a different person. They're still the same person, but just I feel like as long as people recognize that and don't feel the pressure to try to disconnect themselves from the Mormon church or to connect themselves with it, that it will just, I mean, I think it'll be a lot healthier environment for a lot of people.